Good morning, my brothers, sisters, compatriots, friends. It's been almost 2 weeks since the dastardly wicked terrorist attack on Yelwata. And since then, we've been praying, working, advocating for an end to these killings. And I think the world is waking up, or Nigerians are waking up to how serious this situation is, although it has been for a while. And this message, my name is Jonathan-Ichaver, and I'm a justice advocate. I am a Christian. I have been working on providing support and relief to affected communities from these terrorist attacks, particularly in the Middle Belt, since 2014. So what I'm going to share today, even though from a Christian point of view, and primarily to my brothers and sisters of goodwill, of people who fear God, who believe in truth. Jesus says anyone who is on the side of truth will listen to him. This message is for you. And I will just speak. I pray that God will give me utterance so we understand the seriousness of our situation in Nigeria and in the West African sub-region. So, of course, I pray with friends, and even more so as we've been seeing the situation unfold in our country for years, especially with Chibok, for example, and some other things. I got into the habit of regularly praying with friends. And today I was praying with one of my sisters. And we constantly, of course, pray for Nigeria. And and I've been doing a study on mercy, on God having mercy, on the merciful nature and character of God. And today we were just praying and asking God for mercy. And one of the things my sister and I've seen also, we've expressed constantly as a people, is we just marvel at the evil and the wickedness and the terror that people can unleash on other human beings. And we're surprised and shocked by it. Particularly in Nigeria, we've seen it unfolding several times. And, you know, with one attack, we think it can't get any worse. Then you hear something that is even more horrible. And in a way, we've become desensitized to the killings and the kidnappings and the evil atrocities that have been committed in our country for coming on decades now. And as we were praying, and you know, we were talking about how it's just inconceivable that human beings can just wake up, decide to displace entire communities, and wreak such havoc, rape women, burn innocent women and children in their huts. And you know, in some cases, we've seen where they've ripped pregnant and babies out of pregnant women's wombs and things like this. And in our world, we can't understand this. But it's very much a part of war. It's very much a part of a way to inflict terror. And if that's what these terrorist headsmen or militia, Fulani militia, whatever you want to call it, for a very long time I was hesitant to say, to use the word, to say, oh, Fulani militia. And that's just because I don't believe that we should be painting one ethnic group and say all Fulanis are militia or terrorists, much in the same way that when you say a certain group do certain things, or in the way you would say when Americans went and basically, or those who were going to be Americans now went and took over America by killing off basically the Indian American population. And you know, there are all those stories. It would now paint Americans all as genocidal, land grabbing maniacs. Far from it. I've always shied away from those labelings. But we've seen sometimes you say Chechen rebels. That's not to say all rebels, all Chechens are rebels. It's just to give identity to the rebels and say these are the things. So when people say Fulani militia, or say this, and we start shouting, oh, it's whatever, we start saying, oh, it's want to make all Fulani people look bad. No, it is because over the years, I've been in the field on these particular issues where we're seeing a lot of these terrorist attacks. The people who come in, the people who attack. Even recently on Sunday, the Benue Links bus that was kidnapped, the two people who escaped confirmed that they were Fulani boys. And in many cases, we've heard they are speaking Fulfulde, or the Fulani native language. So this is not in any way to say all Fulanis are terrorists, but to identify these particular people who are visiting particular brand of terror on the Middle Belt and by extension on Nigeria, because they're attacking our food insecurity. So I hope, please, that that is clear. Now, having said that, let me rewind and start from the beginning. Why am I sharing this message? It's so that we can get a sense of what we're dealing with, and as Christians, to plead with God for mercy and to repent, so that we can give him room to act in Nigeria. For many years, I have felt a burden to pray for this country. Those who know me, they know that my birthday is usually before Independence Day. I typically would organize, after birthday celebrations, I would organize prayers for Nigeria. People who know me know that. One. Two, for a very long time, for the last 25 years, I've felt a strong burden for Nigeria, and I've been praying. That's half of my life now, praying and begging God for mercy, that we might open our eyes and see where we're headed. When I worked in the UN and I was in Geneva, people who know me there can attest. I was actually organizing prayer sessions for Nigeria. That was as far back as 2011, 2012, because I saw what was coming. Now, I'm not a seer. I don't see visions. I don't see, but I'm an economics student. I've done development economics. My first degree was in economics. I studied political management after that for my master's, and my course of study was on youth bulges and what can happen when you have restive youth and unemployed youth. My thesis was on that for my master's, but also I am a Bible student, and I have studied and seen what happens to nations who refuse to do what is right in their choices of leadership and in their daily choices for how they will live and treat the less privileged and the weak in society. So why did I feel this burden? So let's backtrack. 1999, 2000, we had just gotten our new quote-unquote democracy. And to be honest, I actually expected that in 1999, when the PDP then came in, that we would really see radical changes. For me, what was I expecting? Of course, being a Bible student, I expected to see some move away from that oppressive, coming out of oppressive military regime into having. The big thing for me was having the children begging on our streets, whether in Lagos or whether in Kano, the Almajiri. I had hoped that there would be a strong leadership, a strong presidency, a strong governorship, all the states saying this has got to stop. If we're going to make progress as a nation, we have to kill this culture where people are out, children are out begging on the streets, and we all go around our business as if there's nothing wrong with this. Didn't we see back then that when you neglect children, people have said it often. The first time I heard it from Professor Pat, who told me what you're doing when you're doing that is you are breeding the people who will rise up in future and kill you. Is that not what we're seeing today? There was no radical commitment to saying we're going to educate our children, we're going to take care of our children, we're going to love our children. Our soul continued to rot. Nelson Mandela said that the way people treat their children, the way a nation treats its children, that is the soul. That shows the state of the soul. and we continued in that decay. We continued to allow this Almajiri tradition continue, and we learnt it all across the nation, and we didn't shake anymore. That was our number one mistake. The second thing I thought was a was the number of people languishing in prisons, in basically awaiting trial. These are the things that God hates. The third thing, because the Bible talks about, you can study Jeremiah, you can study Joel, you can study all of them. There was no justice. Widows being disinherited by their husbands' families. This is a tradition across, as a practice, across Africa. The way that we subject the weak, orphans, girl children, the poor, not looking after them. Even after we got democracy, we had hoped that our country, our nation, would begin to treat the poor with dignity. Even the buses that we ride, they should have some dignity. The people should be treated with respect, and we should treat ourselves with respect. Instead, we just saw a continuation of more of the same. We saw us worshipping, amassing of much wealth by those who were in power. They would come on the roads and clear everybody off the roads. Despite many of them claiming to be Christians, they were living large and not obeying the injunction of Jesus Christ to serve the people. What did we expect? So those were the things that gave me cause for concern and made me begin to really pray and plead with God for mercy. So I was not surprised at the turn and the terror that has been unleashed. I was not surprised because we also saw when kidnapping started in the Niger Delta, instead of us dealing decisively with it and saying we are not going to negotiate with terrorists, we started paying ransom. I remember so clearly the first case I read of. I actually expected the Nigerian government to come out and say it is a state policy, we're not negotiating with terrorists or with people who kidnap people. They started paying those ransoms or encouraging people to pay or letting people pay those ransoms. I said, oh, they've unleashed a terror on Nigeria. Here we are today. So we started praying. I started praying and begging God for mercy. We continued, our churches continued on in their mad quest for power, for mammon, so many, for expansion. So we saw our churches, Pentecostal, the various denominations, Baptist or conservative ones, we began to follow in these things. We stopped preaching, if we ever did, about justice. We stopped calling our people to righteousness. We started preaching about prosperity, about making it in business, and we continue till today. These things were the things that made my heart heavy and made me start praying and begging God for our country. Because as your nation is, your nation's churches are, so your nations will be. And when a nation starts, churches in nations start to love and pursue mammon and power like the rest of the world and use the world's tactics to grow its churches, and they want to be big and everywhere in Nigeria, and they want to take over, quote unquote, in the worldly sense, sin is not far and destruction is not far. These are the things the Israelites were doing, and we can be very arrogant, but we'll talk about that later. These were some of the things that led me to praying. Was it the injustice? I had expected that as a state, when policemen shoot shoot citizens when they are demanding bribes, and the citizens, how many times have we heard stray bullets? Someone was hit because they didn't pay a bribe or they didn't do whatever, or when policemen just take people into cells, they clear people. I had expected that we would have a presidency and the leadership and governors who would say, not on our watch, you will not do this, that anybody or any DPO or any commissioner of police where there are people killed by your policemen, you will be sanctioned and you will be sacked. We've not seen any of that, culminating in that evil that happened under the watch of President Muhammadu Buhari and under the governorship of Jide Sanwo-Olu at the Lekki toll gate, where our young people were killed and there was very little justice done, and they were not held accountable. The people who, quote unquote, gave those marching orders, wasn't it the army and the police that went there? What has happened to the Inspector General of Police for that time? And what happened to the Chief of Army Staff? And even the National Security Advisor and all of those We've still not held them accountable. These are the things, these are the issues, and we have them from place to place. Was it Odi? Was it Zakibia? Who was held accountable? These are the things. Was it the ones in all over the country? All these killings. Is it Deborah who was killed in the north? Nobody did anything, and no one was held accountable. Is it the many people who have been killed in riots in Kano, in different places, the mob killings, even down south, and people are not held accountable? Is it the injustices? No surprises that we're here. If you read the scriptures, if you read particularly the Old Testament, which, by the way, shows the heart of God towards these things, and let us know that God does not change. God does not change, and he will still come and judge these things. Are we surprised that our nation is where it is today? That's why scripture says sin is a rebuke, it's a reproach to any nation, but righteousness exalts a nation. Is it any wonder that Nigeria has continued to sink because of sin? We've seen that despite our religiosity, we have not allowed the Lord to change our hearts. Instead, when I talk to Christians who are in politics, who are supporting devilish candidates, people who are known for corruption, who are known for every kind of evil under the sun, they'll tell me, leave that one aside, leave God out of it. That is a joke. God cannot and will not be mocked. You cannot carry his name and then say you're supporting evil. C'est pas possible. It is not possible. In TV, we will say, Ufatyoga. God is a holy God, and we should serve him with fear and trembling. It's either you're with God or you're not with him. In Revelation, Jesus tells us that he's coming to spit. He was going to spit some people out of his mouth because they were lukewarm. They were neither hot nor cold. So if you're going to be a Christian and you are going to be supporting evil people, then perhaps you should say, I'm not a Christian. Instead of milling around the church, trying to get this aura of holiness, God will not be mocked. And my brothers and sisters, as painful as it is to me to say it, as painful as it is, what we're seeing today, it is the outcome and the result of the seeds we have been planting for decades in this nation. Civil war happened. The genocide happened. We used hunger as a way of war against the Biafrans. What have we done to make that right? Even till today, instead, we keep shouting how much we hate the Igbo people, how we hate them because they tried to separate and seek their own way. I will not get into the politics of the Biafran War or the Civil War. But is it any surprise that some people want to separate from us when they feel there is no justice? And yet when we cry, when people cry, those young people that were crying, end SARS, they just wanted an end to unjust killings. What did we do? We killed them at the toll gate and we did not stand for them. How many of our churches stood? We, the older generation, did we stand for our young people? Is it any wonder they've turned to drugs, many of them? Many of them have no respect for us. Is it any wonder? There's a reason why we're where we are today, my brothers and sisters. By the grace of God, let us listen, let us repent. I was doing some research about what it was, theologically speaking and spiritually speaking, that led to the destruction of Jerusalem, of Judah, of Israel, of them going into captivity, particularly Judah, the southern kingdom, in 587 BC. We're not Israel, we're not Jerusalem, but there's a way God deals with nations. The Israelites were able to drive out the Canaanites and the Ammonites because the Bible tells us God had told Abraham that a time would come when the sin of those nations would reach their full measure, and then he would wipe them from that place. Nigeria, is your sin reaching its full measure? These are questions. These are things we have to plead with God for mercy on, because what we have done and undone. Is it the child sacrifices? Is it the rampant immorality despite our religiosity? In some of our communities, we even hear that when children are born with defects, whether they are cerebral palsy, they have congenital heart defects or something, in some of those communities, we hear they are being drowned. Or is it in some parts of this country where there are pedophiles and we have legalized pedophilia, and we call it child marriage. And some cases, they are marrying off children as young as what, 8, 9, and we condone it. We're not fighting it with everything we have as a state. In some places, I mean, ridiculous. What do we expect? Is it in some places where twins are being killed, or where children are labeled witches? In one case, I remember one time when I worked for UNICEF, in one of the states, a child was labeled a witch, and they put a nail in that poor child's head. And the children were selling. Is it when you go to people's houses, children are working as slaves almost? And then some of the men will start sleeping with them, even some women. And then they will come out and be pretending and be going to church. What are we doing? We're playing games with God. We're not serious. Is it any wonder Nigeria is where it is today? So I was studying this, doing some research. And there were 6 sins this scholar, or the writer of this article, identified. 1, repetition of sin, failure to repent. So we took over in 1999, or democracy took over. I'm talking to Christians now. All of us who say we study the Bible, all of us who say we love God and we love righteousness. Let's listen to this, please. We took over and we continue the profligate, unjust ways of the military administration. Then it was a warning. We now went on, started rationalizing the sin, making all kinds of excuses, worshipping people who had wealth that was questionable, began to accord them all kinds of honors. It was under that first dispensation that we started giving national awards and honors to people with questionable character who had rigged elections as a reward for their helping our presidents and whatnot rig elections and get into power. We're speaking truth here. If you hate it, please, you can switch off. Because it's not me that when judgment day comes, God will say, I put this on your heart, why didn't you say so? I'll now start chewing mouth and end up in hell. Like God forbid. We started rationalizing the sin. What's worse, we took it to church. Started rationalizing sin. Some of our churches, people will steal and come and give us tithe. We won't ask questions. Our churches began to imitate these lifestyles, and we started making excuses. We're buying private jets in a country where children are begging on the streets. And we're making excuses and saying A, B, and C. We're all guilty. Living luxuriously while our children beg on the streets. We're not even fighting. Our churches were not even speaking. Yes, we do some of the good works. We'll go give some rice here as a sop to our conscience. Some of us are genuinely concerned, so we do what we can. God bless you. But we have voices as churches. How did we use them in the past? How are we using them now? Benue is here, Yelwata. Thank you to all the pastors and the churches that have gone to these various places and taken relief materials, because this has pricked our conscience. And God bless all of you who are doing that. But the question is, how are you using your voice for the oppressed? We need to rise up as a church and speak the truth. We need to stop being politically correct. In Yelwata, one of the people killed was a president of a missionary union for a church. I've been looking for his name. How is it that they're killing our people? We cannot name them and demand justice from the government. Whereas when 2 people are killed, I'm not saying anyone should be killed, please. Nobody should be killed by mob violence. Whereas when a few people are killed in other places, we start begging the northern governors. Why? Because we're afraid they will unleash violence on our people there. Nobody should be unleashing violence on anybody, please, extrajudicially. But we, as people who love God, where's our care for these families who have been killed? There was a woman in Yelwata who, she and her 5 children were burnt with her mother. Till now, I've not been able to get that woman's name. What are we doing? Did she belong to a church? How come the church is not able to publish her name and say, or the churches have not been able to publish their names, or the communities and say, these are the people we've lost? Yes, some of them in Yelwata were displaced. They had run from other places and sought refuge. Rationalization of sin. That rationalization of sin gave rise. So we saw PDP, Chibok happened, and Buniyadi and all of those places. were making excuses. It cannot happen. It is people trying to make Jonathan look bad. We were not looking at the issue. What was the issue? Children were missing. Instead of, and that was where we started this rubbish, evil thing we do. Instead of dealing with the issue before you start addressing the whys and the wherefores and the maybes. Jonathan's government, PDP, carried themselves. They're busy doing nonsense politics with that thing. Now, when I say nonsense politics, they were the ones that politicized the rubbish. Oh, it was people making it look bad. It's not possible. It couldn't have happened. If you hear children are missing, what's the first thing you do? Within the first 24 hours, you investigate. You send people out there, make sure it is true, and you rescue those children. Here we are. 11 years later, it is a shame. It's a blight on our total conscience. And no wonder kidnapping became so rampant. Mass kidnappings. People started making money of it. Boko Haram, people started making money of it. In government, we saw. Yet, till today, we've not seen these sponsors of Boko Haram. Is it any wonder we're where we are? And we went on to continue supporting these people. Then APC came with their fake, false, lying policies. Yes, let me declare, I ran for election in 2023, not under PDP, not under APC, for these very reasons. Because I said, and I say it again, I posted it on Facebook some years ago, that I, by the grace of God, will not take my finger and put it beside APC or PDP. Because by so doing, I am telling the Lord that, God, please, yes, I like what these people have been doing these last few years. Give me more. Give me more of their oppression. Give me more of their whatever. I said, never. People said, oh, why didn't I go to a bigger party? If you're asking why I didn't go and join APC, PDP, so I could do it, that was the reason. And by the grace of God, I will not join such people unless they repent and renounce their sins publicly and make amends. Now, back to the point. We now entered into a full state of rebellion. Buhari and co came and deceived us. Oh, we're reformed Democrats. They came in, it was more of the same. Never mind the fact that he had a vice president who was a pastor of a very well-known denomination. These people oversaw that travesty at the toll gates. Until today, we continue to celebrate those who did that. That's just one. And the killings increased. Between 2009, by the way, my people, and 2025, Benue alone, I'm not talking Plateau, I'm not talking Kogi, I'm not talking Nasarawa, I'm not talking Taraba, I'm not talking Adamawa, we're still collating the figures. Benue alone has suffered over 621 attacks by these terrorist headsmen. It was under Buhari that nonsense word emerged. Banditry. Bandits. What is bandit, Biko? What is bandit? What is that? They came up with that word, and I first read it in the newspaper. It was said by a police spokesman, if I'm not mistaken, or an army spokesman. And I said they've started because they were trying to downplay the seriousness of the evil that they were continuing to aid and abet. Because if you are not arresting the people who do this thing and prosecuting them and finding their sponsors, they are aiding and abetting as a government, as security agents. They started calling it bandits. Why? So that the international community's attention will not be on this thing. Then they came up with unknown gunmen. Then when those of us who protest, see civil society organizations will cry out. Some people come and say, oh, it's because we don't like this person. They're from the south or from the north or from the west. Nigeria, why do you think you're here? We don't love the truth. We're confused and our sin has dulled our minds. We carried on with this state of rebellion. Corruption increased. The lies increased. The propaganda increased. We continue to make excuses for these corrupt and wicked leaders, and in so doing, we helped them become more corrupt and more wicked, because when there are no consequences for sin, impunity grows even more. So they were emboldened. Then 2023 happened. Despite the fact that the current president told us very clearly that he intended to continue from where Buhari stopped. Those of you that refused to read the room, and you saw all the perambulations and all those things, you still carried your hand and were voting for these guys who had promised you they will carry on from where Buhari stopped. Let's not talk about the hardship that was imposed on the people. The food blockade, not allowing food coming to Nigeria, despite the fact that our farmers were continually being attacked and our food security was diminishing by the day and food prices were going up. We now started doing things like rebasing how we define employment, unemployment, rebasing GDP. Lies! Propaganda! That's what our governments have become masters of. Instead of fixing the issues, romancing the issues. I don't blame them, I blame us, because we were there. I blame even the churches, because these politicians come, they are members of our churches. Instead of our pastors to call them out and be good shepherds, we're busy romancing them, chasing them for contracts, for land, for soft landings, for whatever, for jobs, for our children. We're in church, we know what we do. Come on, let's be honest with ourselves. My people, let us talk to ourselves. Father, have mercy. That's why we are where we are today. We continued. PDP was the beginning of this thing. It was a lost opportunity for us to reset the thing. We flipped it the other way, especially when those who could lead refused to come forward for fear or whatever it was, and they ceded the space to rogues who now became even more powerful and began to give birth to even more roguery and more evil. Buhari was a warning of things to come. We saw that with NSAS and the various injustices, the disappearances of journalists like Yelwata, nothing done. The massacres in southern Kaduna that began to extend and grow, nothing done. Nobody found. Reportages that militants, terrorists, reportedly Fulani terrorists had been brought in from other parts of Nigeria to make sure that terror would be unleashed on the people should Jonathan refuse to step down. In 2015, we got these reports. Our government has done nothing about that. No investigation, nothing. That's their nature. Instead, what they do is they turn it on you and begin to blame the victim. So, we had Yelwata. Did you hear the Commissioner of Police, the Chief of Defense Staff, Chief of Army Staff, or whoever tell you that immediately that attack happened, first and foremost, this was the reason why they couldn't respond over a 3-hour period as those terrorists operated in Yelwata. The stretch between Yelwata and wherever they ran to, that they had deployed drones or planes to track them. They saw their tracks. They bought motorcycles from here. This is where the AK-47s are coming from, blah, blah, blah. They've traced them to this hideout. This is it, this is it. They've looked at the illicit financial flows and all of that. Have you seen any of that? Have they given you an account? Have you seen the Commissioner of Police of Benue State call a press conference to answer these questions? No. Instead, we saw a mockery of those who were killed, facilitated by the governor of Benue State, come into that and come and dance on the graves of those poor dead people. Baba, is it any wonder we're where we are today? I'm talking to you people, I'm talking to myself, we church people. These are the things we support, and we'll still stand up and be writing things in support of these governors instead of asking them honest questions. And we wonder. Those things are hitting closer to home now. People are saying to me, oh, so sorry, EA, about Benue. Don't be sorry for us like that, too. We're all in this thing together. Because what they are doing, look at Lagos, look at our cities, Abuja, Port Harcourt. They're bursting at the seams. People are rushing in every day. What are they doing? They're displacing us from our rural communities, affecting our food supply, and throwing us into the cities. God forbid they start throwing bombs in our cities. Nigerians, wake up. Lagosians, wake up. They come to Lagos every single day. Go to Lasu, go to Iba every morning. See what comes in. The trailer loads with all kinds of people. Some of them genuinely seeking shelter. I know because I work with some of them. But among them, some coming. Your government, our government is not insisting on using the national identity management, whatever they did. Many that made us, we went to go and queue and we're killing ourselves up and down some years ago to get national ID. They're not using it. That whole tying your thing to SIM, kidnappers are transferring money, doing all sorts freely. Nobody is arresting anybody. Come on, Nigerians. Why are we not asking these questions or insisting? We're too easily, we're happy to be bamboozled. Because our leaders don't care. You know why? They have some police people around them, some mopo. Then when people talk, people like me or others who will talk, they will send DSS after them. How long can this continue? Nigerians, you better wake up. You better wake up. Nigerian church, wake up. Wake up. What is coming is not pleasant. For those of us who are Christians, we still did not learn from the Buhari years, despite all we had seen. And we allowed ourselves, went on to actively support a party that had overseen the killing of so many without taking any action. Overseen is the wrong word. Had allowed no justice. There was an increase in kidnappings, increase in terror. Sote, they were doing repentant terrorists and absorbing them into all kinds of things, giving them money. Meanwhile, the displaced continued to increase. Our people were still in camps. There are some people who've been in camps and displaced for at least 10 years. Some children born, they know no other life. But the terrorists and our government, some of them, officials, were getting fat off these things, diverting relief materials, and so on and so forth. We ignored the signs and still overwhelmingly supported, in my state anyway, in Benue, APC. Why? Because the APC brought us somebody who said he was a reverend father. And Benue overwhelmingly voted for. Then, well, he was suspended, Governor Hyacinth Alia. Despite him having no track record in administration or anything. Now, of course, his lackeys will come for me. But I'm talking to us Christians, let us be true to ourselves. In your business, you hire people who are experienced to run your affairs. I don't know what happened. There was mass hysteria. I didn't know anything about the governor. And this is not about the governor per se. I'm talking about our system and the way we think. But the minute we saw how the primaries in APC in Benue went, and how this person, this man, let me not say person, forgive me, with all due respect, how Governor Alia then, well now, then Reverend Alia was willing to benefit from a process that did not follow due process. That told me everything I needed to know about the character of leadership we were about to get. Because anybody who has integrity will not allow themselves to benefit from an unjust process. I'm not a fan of APC in any way, shape, or form, or PDP, or many of our parties. Especially where you start doing things, funny things. But we saw what happened. We saw what happened. And this was pushed by the then former senator. Now he's the secretary of the federation to the government. Let me say a word here about our leaders, our governors. I'll speak for Benue and our elders. With no intent to insult anybody, I have no intent to disrespect people. But truth is truth. Jesus spoke truth to power. Since 1999, our governors in Benue, they've collectively worked to impoverish the people. They've helped a few. Lost opportunities. We didn't mechanize. We didn't do the rural roads. So our communities began to be cut off. How many of us can go to our villages in Benue? How's the Makudi or Tukpo road? Yes, some of them are federal. But there are ways you can engage with federal government to make sure your state develops. Look at Akwa Ibom. Let's not go far. So, what they did, and then denying people salaries from towards Suswam's tenure, the end of his tenure, Governor Suswam's end of tenure, then Governor Otom carried that on. The whole fight with the anti-grazing bill, that's a whole other story, a story for another day. Maybe one day we'll have time to delve into it. But these things, these failings impoverished our people. Even as our leaders were busy romancing with whether it was Northern Governors Forum or whatever group they were doing, instead of seeking out proper alliances that would really help their people grow. So what have they done? They've collectively weakened the Benue people. I'll have another message for my TIF brothers and sisters. Maybe one day I'll deliver it in TIF, God helping me. But for Benue, this is what happened. So it is now so that the people are so impoverished, they cannot resist terrorist incursions on their land. Make no mistake, even the Holy Book, even the Bible recognizes that you can't defend yourself. In fact, there are cities of refuge in God's law that were provided for people who maybe they mistakenly killed somebody, were dealing with, or when they were defending themselves. They spilled blood. So, make of that what you will. Again, I'm speaking from a Christian perspective. But our governors collectively did not help our matter. Even local militia began to grow under them, not, and it has gotten to a point now. How is it that for a 4-hour journey, I can't remember the number of kilometers, between Abuja and Makudi, there are 4 toll gates passing through Nasarawa State. Even between Lagos and Makudi, there are not 4 toll gates. But what has happened, Benue, wake up and know this now. You have been effectively cut off from Nigeria, apart from that Lafia road. So, to go to the east, wahala, because the road is so bad. Now it's kidnappers everywhere. I've talked about these people that were kidnapped on Sunday. To go to Ogoja, road is bad. So, in TV, we'll say, Ihimbi, say, that means we are choked. Hooked in there. Governors, what were you doing? Busy chasing after patronage at federal level instead of taking care of our people. Yeah, there are a few people you were helping and supporting and giving patronage to. We know some of them are our family members. I remember saying to some of my family members, I do hope that is, that is your mother's pension that you are collecting. A lot of our families benefited from the largesse of some of these because some of them are elite, their position. So I know I'm speaking. So therefore, our families began to support these people and defend things. Our churches. That's why our churches are so emasculated, because we're compromised. Many of us cannot speak the truth to power. So here we are, 2025, Middle Belt and Nigeria are under siege. Our food security getting worse. We think prices of food are tough this year. Wait till next year, because the harvest is reducing. Because these guys are taking over. They are taking over. So that is part 1. I'll come back with second part 2 short. I'm going to take a short break. But let us pray for Nigeria. We need mercy. Thank you.